essentially about to start 1841. And I'm going to play with bidding. I'm going to play with 8 players. I'm weird that way, right? But I want to do some analysis. Well, one thing that I did is I looked at the tracks, and man, there's everything you can imagine here. It's got all the different tracks that you might think, geez, you know, wouldn't it be cool if there was something like this? It doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of any of them. Crap like that in here. And it's got a fair amount of the tracks that you're used to as well. The board doesn't look terribly tight. I have the feeling that the terrain, the mountains, etc., are going to be more of a limitation, and the dots that can be blasted through them, but there's always going to be a possibility to drop another territory through. Now these, I assume, are cannot cross type things, indicating mountains that are just too tough to get through, which makes a space like this or this pretty questionable in general. I doubt that there'll be much attempt to get through in that sort of way. What else? Yeah, also start to think about the money involved. So if I want to put a bid in on one of these things for 20 bucks, I have 420 bucks. That leaves me 400. Theoretically, I could start a company, you know, I could start it with less, but I could start a company with just 200 bucks. So it is possible that I could start a couple of companies if I end up bidding on more than one of these miners. I think it is also possible to bid on the miners for a little more than you otherwise would be able to. One thing to keep in mind, Milan significantly seems to outweigh anything else value-wise. Turin is the next biggest in terms of value. When I look at these cards, the Turin counter goes up to 60. Genoa is only a 40. Milan goes up to 100. Venice is almost useless. Venice itself is a doinker for 30. It's not really useless because look at it. It's a doinker for 30 that leads to a 40-point port and has a 10-point city coming out of it. So it actually has some value, and you'll see as the, of course that's the green tile. The yellow tile, it's 20 and 10 with that port though. That port's pretty valuable, so that's going to be part of the terrain I have to look at. Of course, I can't start in Austria to begin with, so that's kind of a factor to keep in mind, and that actually keeps me out of Milan as well. So some of the best cities are not going to be available to me. Genoa, let's see what their yellow tile looks like. They get a yellow Y to begin with. They got a G there, and I don't see a G. Oh, they can't play. That's a yellow piece of, yeah, that's a yellow tile, so I can't play until green comes out. So there aren't a lot of places that companies can start. And 2, that's not one of these, so that won't be a real starting place anyway. So, you know, putting the thought into each one of these, hey, what do they generate? Well, this one, the IRSFF, is down here. Nobody should bid on that because it's in Venetian territory, and I think I can't start there. I'm going to look up, make sure I understand that role correctly. But yeah, nobody should be bidding on that if that's the case. And then some of the other borders are impossible to cross. So this border would be active for the first couple periods. I'm mistaken about that. The orange can be started. Non-historical companies can't start in Venetian territory. So, but those can't start until period 3. So it really comes down to who's going to be able to start companies, who's going to throw in bids, what they're going to be worth. This $20 a round doesn't seem like it's worth much at all. It's worth a $20 bid though, maybe. So I'm going to kind of randomize what each person bids based on what I think the value of the things are. You know, no reason. So here's the problem though. If there's something that's very good and you don't put a bid in on it, somebody else might get it for a low bid, and that would really kind of suck, you know. But if you put bids on a couple of mediocre looking territories and other people want them and they bid higher than you or whatever, you might get closed out of them. And if a lot of people are thinking in that kind of, hey, yeah, I'd really love to have this one because, man, it makes a lot of money. Well, if you're the guy who makes the choice not to go for those, and nobody actually puts a big bid in on it, it could go very cheaply, and that would be a huge bonus for them. And on the other side of it, if you put in a bid and it's just a little too low, you know, but it's a big bid, you could get closed out of an initial start. Now, that's not to say the next turn you could put a $50, you know, purchase in play. I'm guessing this sucker's going to go for more than 50. But it's hard to tell with some of the others whether or not they're going to score that kind of money. Because this thing just is so valuable, the cities that it immediately touches on. Now remember, they can only lay track 1 per turn in this yellow period, I believe. Again, I may be mistaken. And I'm going to have to face the tiny print and look that up again. After some analysis and a little bit of die rolling, I came up with my bids. Now, a number of people got this as their first choice from my die rolling. I roll on an 8-sider. And this is just horrible. It's useless. It doesn't hook up to anything of value. It's close to Marseille, but it's got to blast its way in there. Now, Marseille is worth a decent amount of money. There's no question of that. But I can't get in there until the green tiles, and it's kind of disconnected from anything else of value. So when I hit that, I said, well, I'm interested in the big boy, you know, which kind of skewed things. And likewise, when people got this, they were not interested in it as their first choice. It's sort of a, yeah, you know, it might make some income. So I scheduled out all the bids. Now, nobody's got their seats yet. Everybody's got their cash, but nobody's got their seats. And what's going to happen is their seating arrangement is going to be ordered based on the height, the value of their bid. So players, these two players have the highest total bid at $148. One of them put it all into that. He's going to get that. Essentially what he did was figured out, if I get, I think, 4 shares at 68, I can afford, let me make sure I got the numbers right, plus 148 puts me at that 420. So I can start the company with 4 certificates in my hand, or 40% in my hands, and yeah, I don't have a lot of money, but it doesn't look like it needs a hell of a lot. And if other people don't buy certificates of it, it'll generate money. And if they do, well, I'll have to swallow some, but that's okay. Of course, I had to put a huge investment into that, getting this. And if I get this and fail to start a company, I've screwed up, right? I've thrown a ton of money into something that isn't going to work. The problem is, it's not clear to me that this is worth, you know, 2 shares of a company to be able to be the guy being president of it. And I think it's going to actually fail. It's a terrific company to hold shares of, but it may not be a terrific company to have spent 2 certificates to be able to get. I think that I think paying a lot of money for anything is really questionable. But the problem is, if other people are going to start companies, hey, they're going to waste money on stuff that's not going to be as good a producer. So they're not going to be buying certificates of that and whatever. That's the thinking. I think these bids were way over the burden. And honestly, anybody who went for anything good kind of put a decently large bid in, like the equivalent of a certificate of stock, to be able to get that presidency. But that presidency can't be taken away from them, not until the concession goes away. So that means that these two people are in position for the first slot in the game, and this guy has a bid on a earlier company, so he's going to be number 1. I'm not going to shift the money around or anything like that. There's no point to that. Everybody's got the same starting position here. Number 1, he may or may not get anything, but he's in the number 1 position and has, of course, the priority. Now, when I play, I always go counterclockwise for whatever reason, so we're going to continue with that. So the number 2 player is over here with his 148 bid. That's all on one company, so he's going to get that. My next bids are 140s. This guy, they both put 20 in on the first company, but this guy put 50 in on the second company, so he's going to be number 3. And we'll dispose of, this isn't going to be that big a deal once I handle this initial round. So he goes to be number 4 over here. Number 5 is going to be this 130. Number 6 is going to be this 120 bid on the 8. He's not going to get anything. Number 7 is over here with an 84. He put bids on these two. And number 8 is over here. Now we resolved the first one. And we got 4 people with a bid of 20. Now, let me see how the tiebreakers work, because part of me said it went the opposite way of the initiative. Okay, yes, they're allowed to start bidding starting with the guy who has priority. So that's what we have to look at. Number 1 did not put a bid in. Number 2 did not. Number 3 has a bid on this. Now, he has 140 bucks. He has like $8 left to play with if he gets his 2 companies. These bids are revealed. He knows he's not going to get this company. Is this worth an extra $5? It makes money early on for quite a while, but it doesn't generate any stock value. So, does he go up to 25? He's going to go up to 25. That's up here. I'll put a little mark here. The bids have to be at least in increments of 5, but they're not fixed in 5s, if I recall correctly. They better not be, because I've got like that 158. Yeah, the minimum raise is 5. Okay. So now we get to the next person in line for that. And this was number 3. Number 4 is in this bid. This is getting kind of expensive. I'm only going to let him bid on a 1. Yeah, he's going to pass. And that means number 5 gets a bid, again, only on a 1. And number 3 bids on it on a 1. Okay. So player 5 has gotten company number 1. And he's going to owe 25 bucks for that. And I'll figure out all the cash after I allocate everything. Company number 2, we have 2 people in on it. Player number, this isn't 5, this is 3. Player number 3 got that. Okay. Okay, company number 2 is going to what was the 7th player, And looks like it is still the 7th player. And that's going to go for 30 bucks because he has the biggest bid for it. So he doesn't have to worry about competing for that. And 7 is over here. Yeah, we're going to be crowded on this. I may need to add some tables. Okay. Company number 3 is the loser that nobody wants. We'll put that up there. Company number 4, the high bid is a 54 over here. And that's again player number 7. He's going to have 2 corporations. Company number 5, which is this thing up here. Somehow that went for 50 bucks to player number 3, who also has that yellow thing. And without these being laminated, they're kind of hard to pick up. All right, company number 6, we have tied bids, where player number 1 and player number 8 are both in it. Now, player 8 has got no other companies in his hands, and player 8, and player 1 is not going to get company number 8, so he also has no companies in his bid. That means that this, which is over here, now it's only a minor company. How much is it worth? Well, it's worth 50 if I wait. So I think we'll probably see an initial bid of at least 50 on it. This is not player 1, is it? Yeah, this is player 1. Okay. Is he willing to go 50? Nah, he'll go, I don't know. He'll go 51. let me see. Now, he'll go, see how low he'll go 45. And that means that the other guy who's in on it probably wants it. He'll go to 50. Let's see if he's willing to go up to 55. 55. 60. 65. This is probably getting stupid. $65 over here. And it is probably not worth that. Although all the corporations are going. So that goes over to player number 1. And now this last one, 80 bucks to player number 5. That's the other one over in Torino. He wanted both of the companies that were up there, but he doesn't get it. And now the big 148 bid goes to player number 2. And we have a number of players who do not have any of these. They're going to be investors until the 3 train comes out. And then they're left with, you know, the option of trying to weasel their way in. They can go with major or minor companies. It doesn't really make too much difference. There's a higher startup cost for the major corporations. Because you can buy more certificates for them, for one thing, but also they have more tokens to build, they have more of a lot of different things. So I'm going to equalize the cash. So for example, you know, I look to player 4, he spent nothing. He has nothing. So he's going to keep his cash. Now let's look at player number 2. He's spending 148 bucks. And he has to buy his certificates. Now his plan was to buy 4 certificates. That's where he went with 148. I can take care of that at this moment. So 68 times 4 plus 148 is going to use up all of his money. But the 68 times 4 will go into I think it's this company, but I'm not sure. No. So I got to find the right company. But that money goes into the corporation treasury with which you can buy dots and such. So I jumped the gun by moving the money into here. We're not going to worry too much about that at this moment, though. Everybody's money's been assigned out. We've got the amounts people have paid for what they've gotten. Everything's sold except for this. Everybody's planning on using their stuff. You don't want to just waste, a pile of money for something that's not going to make. So priorities over here on the first player up there with the SSFL. And he has, I think, 355 bucks. He didn't get what he wanted. And now he has to reassign and redecide. Well, what can I buy? That company is a minor company. So all I can get is 2 shares. Now, I can buy a share of something like this if I want to as well, but not right away. So do I want to float my company? It really doesn't make a difference. If I'm worried about this thing running out, maybe I don't want to float my company. So I believe I had 65 bucks out of my 420. That leaves me with 355 indeed. So if I started at 100, I could buy 3 shares of that. If I started at 144, I can buy 2 shares. And that leaves me with 67. $1 short from getting that. You think this is engineered this way? Oh. I can only buy 2 shares anyway. I mean, I could buy a third one afterwards, but I can only start it off with 2 shares. And I might not terribly want more. I honestly think that my goal is to make sure I grab one of these. 68 bucks, I probably don't want more than one, although it's impossible to dump this on me until later status. So I'm probably safe even if I buy more than one. But for now, I'm going to buy a certificate of that for 68 bucks and, ride whatever gravy train it's going to be. Fortunately, I jumped ahead of myself again and had everybody buying those orange ones. They sold out. This guy came by. He bought the presidency of one of his 2 lines. And then I realized, hey, I screwed up. When you first start a corporation, you've got to pick up your tokens for it. So I had, and I knew that these were going to produce a lot of money. I have $272 in my pocket. Now, here's the problem. If I spend all of that, I may not have the money for a train. So I've got to consider how many tokens I can afford without getting screwed out of a train. And I hadn't really considered this kind of thing. But what we're looking at is starting a corporation here. I have to pick up my tokens. Now, a major corporation, I think, pays 50 per? Or is it 25? Historical corporations pay 50 per. So if I have $272, I think I can only buy 3 tokens, which is less than I'd like to. But if I did more than that, other people could all coordinate, and Table Talk is completely allowed in the rules for this. Other people could all, for those who question, hey, should there be table talk in an 18xx game? It's completely in there, which I prefer. No walking away to cut deals, but if you're at the table, you can say, look, we can hose him, we can string him out to dry, you know, and he won't be able to buy a train, ever. There's no loans, there's nothing like that in this. He has no source of income. He will go bankrupt. So, well, that's not entirely true. He could sell off a share and then buy another share later. But that kind of thing, if you've ever played 56 and gotten hung up in that kind of situation, that kind of thing is just terrible. So, given that he wants that, he's only going to buy 3 tokens. Well, 2 of them go here and here. The third one, how important is it? I don't know. I'm not going to be necessarily blasting through here, although it's appealing. Well, late in the game, after this is gone. So 3 tokens is probably more than enough for me. There aren't that many interesting things, but I can run more trains the more tokens I have. Alright, so let's spend that 150 and grab those initially. Okay, well, it's real easy to screw up in this game. This guy over here, he's looking at starting 2 companies, 68 bucks on each, but you gotta buy your goddamn tokens to begin with. So he's got not a lot of money here, under 150 bucks. He has to pay 50 bucks for 1 token. I mean, you have to. Your base, let me make sure of that, but your base costs you 50 bucks. That puts him under 100 bucks. He can't afford the first trade. Luckily for him, he's going to be able to start his second company at 100 bucks. And could start shifting trains. There's no limit on when you can buy trains from other corporations. So he's going to be able to juggle things. But if he had gotten everything he had planned for, well, no. This is player 7. Yeah, if he had gotten everything he had planned for, well, no, he was set up to be able to, he had some padding in his grounds. Luckily for him, he didn't buy a share of that, because otherwise he'd be out of money. But he's going to have serious problems, because this company is not going to be able to actually run a train for, wow. Now, it doesn't have to buy one until after it's operated, which means in that first turn he's not forced to buy one. But he's hooked up right away, so he's going to have to get one in the second turn. Ouch. Otherwise, he'd just be bankrupting himself. Actually mistaken, he is going to have to buy a train. And he's got a few options. It doesn't bankrupt him directly. One, because he has 2 companies, this one is going to run before, so he can buy the train off this one, which we'll see is probably what's going to happen. The second is he can do an emergency sales of his stock certificates. That's allowable. Now, there's something that might save his ass, though. There's people with nothing and nothing to buy. This doesn't look like a terrible purchase. There may be other things that look like better purchases, like over here, but yeah, and the gray over here. So it might be worth this guy holding off on purchasing. He'll only buy that on a 1. No, he's going to find better shares to pick up. But he's been denied this certificate, the rich stuff. Everybody else has grabbed a share of it, up to this poor sucker. So it might be worth investing in this, but I kind of don't like helping someone out who's really over the barrel like that, unless I'm getting some kind of clear advantage. And I don't know enough about this game to say, yeah, this is worth a lot. Nobody bid as if it was worth a whole hell of a lot. This looks like it's going to be the bigger runs early on. Although the borders make it all so that nothing's a terribly good place to build things. So something I didn't realize, this is a major company. Doesn't change too much except that he had the opportunity to buy more shares at once, which meant he could buy more tokens to begin with. But instead, he threw in at 68 so he could get 4 shares, and only bought 1 token. That gives him a lot of money for these cheap early trains, which is what he's kind of planning on cranking through. And when the 2s disappear is when this kind of merges, I believe. I hope I'm right. You know, it's so hard when you don't know. And this is a really tough game to get a grasp on. But what I'm looking at here is, it's the SSFL. It's the thing that creates the SFLI, which is the Tuscan merge. Since all the companies are probably starting, it's all going to jump together. And that happens when? I don't know. Let's hope it's phase 4. Yeah, it's in phase 4, as I said. So if I buy a bunch of 2 trains, I'm going to dump them into whatever he's building with his companies. And I'll get shares along with him. And I'll be making good money off my stuff. And then get shares of this better major company as the follow-up. So that looks like a tasty plan for him in a lot of ways. That pushes us over here. I don't know how much money anybody has. He probably doesn't. I'm sorry. He has no money. He has money and is starting a company. Otherwise, he's throwing away that concession. Well, we've pushed around a little bit further in the stock round. We can see people are buying up these blue shares. But the problem is that's a major company. And the reason that's a problem is those are 10% shares. They grow as well as anything on the stock market. But when they come to bringing in income, company that looks like it's doing pretty well with 2 dots, etc., may not actually be all that impressive when compared against something that brings in twice the revenue for its, running out of one space. So, some of these, this one is particularly questionable. But the thing is, the best of the companies are these majors at this point, just because they've kind of gotten the bigger cash flow so far. So, companies like this could make good money. If I'm not careful, though, I could let this guy out of the hole he's dug himself, which is really kind of I don't really want to do that. This is another major corporation, and a particularly questionable one facing out here. It doesn't look anywhere near as valuable. So this guy's got to decide, does he want to just keep buying up those blues that look pretty good? There's not much chance of getting dumped on at this point. Yeah, I think so. Starting over with this guy, the big bailout began. The realization that those 20% shares are just inherently valuable, and especially when they're at 68 bucks a pop, hey, why not? So he threw money in here bailing this guy out, and that started a flow. You got more of it coming here. We got the reds going there, but we also see money going into this Torino over here. So everybody who started a company is in okay shape. The big question is, what can you do with your corporation? Now, I'm worried that I've overvalued ownership in this. But I'm also considering that maybe I haven't, because there's a lot of strange instruments in this game. You can buy up shares with your corporations. They can make money. But there's no way to get that money into your pocket. as there is in the robber baron games, 1830 and 56 especially. Well, 30 especially. But maybe if you can get some shares and get your operating expenses paid off, etc., you can run hard and make good percentages off of it. But that doesn't really help when you're sitting on 40% and somebody else has that percentage too. Of course, the advantage for him is he's got two 40% holdings in some little companies, and that's kind of appealing. We'll see. I feel like the huge amount of money that he spent isn't doing him anything, except he's got the biggest holding in that thing by far. That's the advantage of getting into the majors, especially, is you can say, yeah, it's a good percentage of it's mine, and if it's going to be really valuable like this is, a lot of other people are going to split it up, and they're going to ride for good value, I assume. We don't know. We may well see people crashing left and right in this one. I'm not sure. Let's give it a watch. Okay, so that's the end of the stock round, I guess, wherever I am, and we'll move to the operating round. The first thing is adjustment of prices. There's 3 companies that have sold out, and nobody has anything in the bank pool. So let's take a look. It looks like none of the high-priced companies sold out. No. And most of the low-priced ones did. This is a case where I'm pretty sure the stack moves up in its current order. It's when you sell things that they get kind of reversed. Most games leave that up to the player making the sale to make the decision what the order is. Anyway. And this may actually be a modification over here in the fact sheet instead. So if I forget that, I wouldn't worry too much. It's certainly at least a clarification there, which may just indicate Lawson team's preference for how to play that rather than just it's up to guys selling it what order they're sold in. Alright, so our first company, and we do follow that, I had to look that up. The first company that we run is the highest valued one, and this is the SFTN. All these companies and all these names, this is a real problem. So, just in terms of a pain in the butt. So I have money for a couple of trains, a little bit extra, but I may not want a couple of trains because I don't have dots for a couple of trains. This dot over here I'm using for recording player ownership to begin with. So I'm going to get to lay some track, and I think what I'd like to do, well, I know what I'd like to do is whip right around and catch here. The problem is I'm not going to be able to do that. Blue is going to be able to lay the track they like here and the track they like here. They don't have any of our shares, so we can't expect anything friendly from them. So I'm going to head off this way and see what ends up out of it, because those are free, and I'm going to pick myself a double doinker. I'll get doinker my ass. I lay this track. Now I have the opportunity to buy trains. Well, let's go through the whole thing. I can place a token. I don't own any tokens that I can place. I hope I wasn't a major company. I'm a major company. I owe $50 more for another. I had to buy a second token. Now it's a shame I don't have 2 tokens that I'm going to be able to play anytime soon, because this is I'm in the phase of the game where I can play as many track lays as I have tokens, but it would be nice to be able to grow more quickly. But I'm not going to be able to do that. However, I bought one, so I bought only one train for $100, and now I have a nice amount of money left. I have 138 sorry, $140, which means I can buy 2 shares of something worth 70. Now, that's not this. This is worth 100. I could buy these guys at 71, but they're all sold out, so I can't. Oh, this sold out too. Shit. What was the order on these? I think this was here. Why did I miss that? Orange, green. This is the one that wasn't sold out. Okay. Unfortunately, no, that's SSFL. Who's SSFL? They're not sold out. That's me. Am I using the wrong tokens for this? No. Okay. So unfortunately, I have a pile of money. Now if I could buy another train with, but I don't have enough to buy 2 shares of anything. So I'll spend the $100 or 2 certificates and buy one of these. And I just sold it out. And now whatever that produces money, I'll get some in my holdings. How big a deal is that? Well, I don't have priority, so I wouldn't get that final share that's out there. And that $100 goes to the company treasury. I hope. Let me make sure I didn't screw up. This is really hard to do on video because this game's so different that I have to keep halt. End of the stock round, and this is actually even crappier than your normal miners. Forgot this guy pulled in $20. So he doesn't get $20 each operating round. He gets $20 at the end of the stock round, if I'm correct on that. So now we move on as we would with a normal XX, running through each of the companies. So the red guy here, well, he's not sure what he wants to hook up. I have to look to see if I can double dip into this city because I only have 1 token there. These guys are miners, though. They're the only historical miners. I think I was thinking, you only have 1 base, you're a miner. Nah. He's actually got a pile of money on his hands right now. Not much to do with it. He'll probably be buying a lot of SSFL stock or whatever it is. Now this is, I don't know. Yeah, SSFL. It's going to be really hard for me to remember all these companies. It's always hard in a foreign, you know, when it's not the U.S. railways that I'm so familiar with, and then to just be given so many, some of which never existed. Yeah, they all look similar. They're sets in the same colors, etc. That's going to be rough to get a grasp upon. And it probably doesn't help too much that, yeah, some of them are geographically fixed, so if you play several games, you'll get used to where they go. But the others could be anywhere. All right. I'll check out again. With a hoard of money on it, for whatever reason, because people bought it up, including that company, I bought up all the shares of the SSFL. He's got 50%. He doesn't get the presidency because it's still a concession-based historical company. I could have started a new corporation, except it's still phase 1, and I'm not allowed to start anything but historical corporations, and a corporation can't start a historical because they won't have a concession in their hand. Not that I necessarily want this thing, so no biggie. One of the modifiers had to do with making this a more attractive space. It's not that terrible because it is a Y space and those are more valuable cities, but it's got a long way to get anywhere. The only really appealing thing to it is it does have a nice link once it can make a Marseille to Genoa run, but that's going to take a lot of effort, and other people may end up blasting their way in there before this gets a start. So I think that's not going to happen. So that puts us on the guy, our biggest company really, who's limited to Venetian territory. And he's allowed 2 track lays. I need $50 to drop the Venice track in place. I probably need 2 trains. I don't have that kind of money, I'm sure. So maybe, although Venice is a valuable space, let me see if I can find it. It's running 30, 40, 80. And I believe, no, wrong space, 20, 30, 70. And it actually runs between 2 cities right on the dot. So I don't really need to build out of it. And I already have my track for a 2 train. I don't have to fully use the 2 train, but I do have to run between 2 cities. But there's 2 cities on there. So that's kind of appealing. But on the other hand, Milan starts out at 60 and one space can get me up to 90. So we'll see how much money we got here, because that's going to decide a lot of. Oh yeah, we sold out all our shares. We don't have a lot of money, but because we were not particularly high stock value, but yeah, we should be able to get both running. Let's see what we can get. I've screwed up. It's these damn pieces of paper that this is on, and 2 of them were stuck together. So somebody grabbed 2 of the certificates, and somehow I ended up $20 short anyhow. Probably a math error. This is going to be a problem throughout the game, the components. I don't know what to do about this, because someone would have bought this shit, and he didn't have the money for them, I don't think. Maybe I'll calculate and see that he had the money, but I don't think so. And I don't know who would have gotten this best of companies instead of what they have. Probably it would have ended up over here, which means less money to something. Probably this company. That looked like his last choice. So I'll try to rectify it. But honestly, it's because these things stick together way too easily. If they were laminated, that wouldn't be an issue. And if they were reasonable stock or something, it wouldn't be an issue. But they just come on basically construction paper. So, yeah, I should have a little bit more cash than I do. Somehow, this guy spent more money than he has anyway, even if I don't count this. I'm counting them up. This was 200, and these were 68 each. And I think I've just screwed up the whole beginning to the game in a very heavy fashion. I guess this is an issue of me trying to play. It was very late, and I was trying to get a little bit in. I don't know what to do. I think I may restart the whole thing. I've learned some interesting lessons in this little first thing. One of which is, you know, auction or no doesn't really matter. Getting a feel for just how much of your money you can invest in something. Because, look, this guy paid 68 a share for a company that's just not very rich. It's going to make good money, I'm assuming. Really good money early on. And then it transfers to something else, or a couple of something else's, and becomes something interesting anyway. But was it worth 150 bucks? You know, 2 shares of that corporation essentially. Or is somebody like this, so I counted these up, okay, but is somebody like this who has just holdings? What about this guy here? He has, oh wait a minute, these aren't worth 100 each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Supposedly I have 6 times 68, which I don't think I can have. Yeah, I could have that. I thought I had 100 buck shares in there. So 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I have not screwed up that much. I'll try to fix it as it were. But yeah, what I'm seeing is this guy who ended up with 4 shares and control of the company in better shape than someone who ended up with less. Well, in the particular case of this corporation, it's hard to tell because 4 shares of that corporation could just be worth a fortune. The stock market chart doesn't look like it screams up too heavily, but I am making 10 bucks on each run that's successful. Successful runs might be difficult for some of these companies though. Some of them may just sit there in stock value. So we're going to learn a lot about this, I think. As it is, let me rectify the IRSFF. So actually I took it from Blue instead because I remember his mindset last night, which was he wanted the 20% share before he decided to buy those Blue shares. He just could only get one of these. He went with the 2 reds next. The Blue was his last choice. So Blue did not sell out, Green did, and we shifted those there. I'm going to go with Red still buying all of the SSFL because he's going to drive its price up. If he has to buy 4 of them, he wants to buy all 5. It might not be as appealing a corporation. However, here's what's really awesome. This is the guy who controls 2 of these. Well, one of his corporations controls one of the internal ones. Now, this is problematic in the long run because when the merger happens, he can't hold all of this. And he'll never get the presidency because the guy who's the president has the concession. So it's not really that big a deal. But he does want to work with him, and he laid this track because he's got the other corporation there. So he's trying to set it up so that it's actually kind of nice, rich thing. It would have been acceptable to run from Firenze to Firenze. I don't want to do that for a couple of reasons. One is it cuts Luca off and makes it harder for Luca to get to where they're going. So this way I can run both companies kind of well as opposed to favoring one over the other. Another reason is I've got this nice loop down here, and if I've got all those white shares, what the heck? All right, so what triggered this all off was trying to figure out what to do with him though. And I'm sorry about all the breaks and coming back, especially because I'm the one who has to edit the video. But, you know, this is me struggling through a game for the first time. It probably shouldn't even be on video, but I doubt that I'm going to be playing another game of it unless I completely screw this one up in a way that I can't rectify. Because I'm just trying to learn something about this game. RSF judged that they could afford to buy all 4 trains. They had enough cash. They also bought a certificate of the Blue company. They can run them all to... Oh, give me $100 back. This track doesn't split, so I'm only buying 3 trains, but that means that I'll buy a share of this stuff as well because I want to make money in my corporate treasury. I've got no way of doing that because I have no shares in it. This can run 1, 2. Granted, this is not a very good run. I don't know about that 3rd train. See, these guys cost 200 a piece, which is pretty hefty. Let me see my my phases here. Looks like I'm allowed to still keep all 4 trains in this period. Number of trains is not listed in... Oh, maybe it's up here. Yeah, 4 still. Okay. I'm wondering if I really want that 3rd train, because I'm only going to be making 30 bucks a share off of it until green comes out. I have a dot which I could place. No reason to do it yet. Make that 40 bucks a share off of it. Yeah, I am gonna buy that extra train, but that means I have yeah, I have the money for an extra certificate, I think. So I guess I'll pick that up. Okay, I'm getting myself very confused here because I think I ran the wrong corporation at the wrong time. These damn things. I think when I ran this one, I bought the trains in stock for that one, but I laid the track for this guy. But then I got confused because they all looked the same to me and bought those. So this guy should have had a train. I'm gonna run this guy's turn and just say he took it. I don't know how much cash this guy had. He probably had some kind of opportunity, but I can't tell anymore because I've gotten confused here. This guy gets to lay some track, and he could buy 2 trains. So this fella here only bought 1 train because he didn't want to wipe the 2s out, and it's all getting confused because I got screwed up by which company's which. And I'm going to have to try to rectify this as well. I think this one got started so poorly in terms of screw-ups that although there's things that, you know, I could keep going and learn, and I'm going to do a little bit more of that, I think the game is just fundamentally broken. This playthrough is fundamentally broken. So I'm not going to try to fix it too much. I shifted this stock over here instead of in his hands, but I'm not going to play too much with this. I want to get through another operating round though. So I'm going to do this strange thing. I'm going to finish this operating round up. I've got one more company. He's got no stocks he can buy, which is actually a problem. In fact, that's a problem for him too. All the shares that are available are sold out. Nobody can start a new corporation. Until phase 3 starts, which is a reason. Well, so now here's what's interesting. If I have 200 extra bucks, I could get another, I don't know where he is, I could get another train on this. And boost things. So like this space could turn into a double space so I could run through it. I do have an extra token on that corporation. This is the major. It's an intriguing idea. I'm not sure. It's one that yeah, I want to run for big money. So I am going... No, I would need 300 bucks to start that new corporation. So I'll hold and I'll just buy the 1 train. And likewise, gray is just buying the 1 train, which puts it on blue to have to buy the 2nd train. Now, they have the advantage once they buy this $200 train that on their turn, because they've made the phase change and train buying comes before the stock investment, I think. If I can find it in here. Yeah. I can perhaps start another company with this one, which seems like a good investment. So let's look at doing that. Time to look at other interesting options. For 204 bucks, I can start a new corporation. The Society Da Vinci I decided to build. Now I'd love to start it right here, but because that tile is laid, it would cost the corporation 200 bucks just to get its single dot. Over here though, I'm 2 dots away, and that would cost me 50. And a 3 train would still be able to run into Milan. I have 200 bucks. That's enough to only buy 1 train. Crap. Now conceivably I could buy a train off this blue corporation here, which, you know, maybe I want to do. Maybe not. Right? If I started 3 spaces away over here in Verona, it would only cost me 25 bucks, but I still don't have enough cash for that first train. I really would like to start this corporation. I'm not going to have the cash on hand to float, to put extra money into it, and neither is anybody else really. And that's kind of the problem. However, do I want to flood the trains? That's kind of what's coming out here. I have a nice train set up. I think I have to forego buying this corporation. Much as I would like it, it looks like it will be a death ride if I take it. And so I'm going to pass on that. But you can see where if, you know, I had invested more heavily in individual corporations rather than trying to get so many started, you would, you know, because I've got 8 players, right? So more are going to get started. I would have been able to probably convert more of that cash in. As it stood, I only had a couple $100 bucks. And with the 3 trains sitting there, I don't know. I could throw more money in at cost to myself, but I really want this share. My worry though is some dude like this is going to be able to jump in and start a corporation now. And that's part of why I bought that extra train, is so I could start another corporation. I just don't have the cash on hand. Yeah, I think it's worth it. I think I'll dump this share, push the trains harder, and try to get this thing. I think starting it here at 50 bucks looks pretty good. That gives me the unfortunate situation of I can only have 1 dot. But it's a hell of a dot. It's not far from, this one would be so much sweeter, but it's not far from Milan. And it initially looks like it's going to have capacity to run through here and also through some of the other Venetian territories. If I could only have had more dots, I would be really happy. Another 50 bucks and I have it in my pocket could buy me this dot, but I'm only getting 68. So if I spend this 50, I'm under the 200 that I need for the train. How much am I willing to risk, you know, the situation? How much am I willing to juggle this corporation, which I have 40% of, whereas I own none of this? I'm not. I'm really not. I'm willing to create a nice little funding flow into here, and I can buy a certificate of it by selling my one good stock. I'm willing to spend some of my money on that, but I'm not willing to go overboard on this to try and make this corporation work. So that is the end of the first operating round. Next time there'll be 2 operating rounds, and we want to get to see some of these corporations actually work. As you can see, this is kind of intensely insane for a start of a game. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 companies start on the first turn. And yeah, there's just so much money available to recycle into the corporations now. All these corporations with stocks and stuff can turn them around and start a new corporation, which can help them, which can potentially merge or whatever. This is not in a good position. You know, his holdings are all down here. He's not in a great position to convert that into another corporation. But, yeah. Maybe I cheated. Maybe I can't build that thing in Milan or near Milan. Non-historical, outside Swiss and Austrian territory only. Yeah, you know, is it worth starting it over here? I don't think so. So I'm giving him this money back, and I'm reversing that. The problem is this really sweet start is interesting. Outside of Austrian territory, not so interesting. Starting a corporation that can only operate down here in the conservative zone, it might not be bad. Ravenna is kind of neat. Gets me 2 boinkers basically. I could cut through these boinkers, so I could be running a lot of power through there. But I don't know that that's worth giving up this certificate. So that means some other company is going to have the first option on it, probably this guy. But yeah, without getting into Austrian territory and the riches that are over there, I can't see it. Austrian territory is just dominated by this orange rail. They're going to make whatever money they make, and they're going to rock because of it. Okay. So let's send this up. I am going to make another video off of this start. And then I've got to decide, you know, whether I want to keep playing and see what else I can learn from what is really a defective beginning. Or if I want to restart it. One way or another I'll get to a full playthrough, but it may be this horribly defective thing.